Well, welcome back. Bob here for the old Iron Lover channel, and we're starting on a few new projects. The first one is going to be replacing this grinder and all of the things that, like most of these projects, you start out to do one thing and it leads you to 2 or 3 others before you're done. So this grinder is a 3/4 horse Inco grinder. It's a nice grinder, but I find myself I use a wire wheel on one end and the wheel on the other, forever bogging it down, and I have to stop and let it spin back up to speed again. Sooner or later, that kind of wear and tear on it's going to burn it up. So I got myself a new used 2-horse grinder, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let's get this off, and the real project here is the stand. So this pedestal is going to be rebuilt with some new specifications. So this is the pedestal that I got quite some time ago when I got the grinder. It's a Chinese made one. It said made in China, so I assume that's what it is. Anyway, has a couple of problems. The worst of it is, no matter what I put down there, if I put it down like this or I put some rubber adjustable feet on it, it wants to walk all over the shop. You know, and it's not that the grinder is that far out of balance. You know, once you use one, it's going to be a little out, but it just, the vibration of it running just wants it to kind of, and as soon as you start pushing on it to grind something, it takes off, and eventually the wire wheel runs into something you don't want run into. The other thing is, it's a little short, so I want to make it a couple inches taller. So we're going to take the top off and take the pedestal off, or the post off, and I'm going to anchor, go ahead and put some red heads in the concrete, and I'm going to anchor this down. Oddly, it's something from China that's metric. There it is. So we're going to keep the parts except for the post. I'm going to get rid of this. And I just happen to have in my steel supply an 8-10 foot long piece of this stuff. So we're going to put it in there. So the plan is, you're going to bolt that down solid and probably weld the bottom. I don't know for sure exactly what. The new grinder fit on the pedestal. It's got holes in it to fit everything. So but one of the problems is, once I bolted it down, then I can't turn it. And it's in kind of a little cubby hole, not a real tight spot, but it's one where sometimes I want to put something long on it and, you know, run a wire brush on it. Sometimes I want to do something else, and it would be nice if I could turn it. So I'm going to put a spring-loaded pin of some kind in here with some holes around it that I can index the head. So I can release it, turn it to 45 degrees and pin it. I can go 90, 45, 0, 45, 90. So I'll have 5 different places I can index this thing to. So that's the general layout of the project. And the other thing I'm going to do is get rid of this wobble at the bottom here. It has some set screws in there, but it's really not easy to get those to hold the pipe part of the stand vertical. It tends to get loose, or if you tighten them up real tight, you find out you got it off a little bit. I'm going to get it all squared up, and I'm just going to actually weld it. There's a little gap there, so I might build something to take up that gap. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but anyway, this is cast iron, this is steel. This is probably going to be a brazing job. The next step on this grinder base, or grinder stand, pedestal, whatever you want to call it, is to modify it so that the plate that the grinder sits on the end of the top of the post. And I'm going to set it so it rotates. And I'll probably take this hole that was once used for a set screw and drill it out a little more and make a spring-loaded plunger that drops into several holes along the way here, so I can index it. Probably have a 0 and a 45 and a 90 on either side, because I'm going to bolt the bottom of it down and it's going to be fixed in one place, and sometimes I need to get something long in there or whatever I need to turn the grinder. So anyway, the problem is it's loose. And it looks like it's really floppy, but really what it is there's a between the top and the pipe here is 40 thousandths loose. Just, you know, pretty loose. But so I thought about a number of ways to fix this, and what I'm going to try is build up just a little weld bead around in these two grooves here, or the two marks here. Inside of here, there's two lands built up that actually are where this and that meet. So I'm going to leave this completely alone and just build up in here and then turn it down so it just barely fits in here. And there's a coolant cup that sits down below it that also goes around here, and its ID is just slightly bigger than the ID of the grinder base. So once I have this built up and turned down to the size it'll just barely fit in here and smoothly rotate, then the cup should slide over it, and it just has a little set screw that clamps it onto the post somewhere. On the other end, we have a similar problem, and the foot that sits on this is built similarly. It's got set screws, a couple of lands, and the post at the end. Well, it's just as floppy, if not more, than the other end, and this is going to be actually red-headed down to the concrete. Don't want it walking around the room anymore. Anyway, so the plan here is to clean out the bottom of that base and put a plentiful supply of JB weld in there, and I can do that at the very last. Once I have everything all bolted down, I can plumb it and brace it in the purely plumb position, and then JB weld it. Now what I may do is go ahead and put the set screws, use the set screws to square it up. It's really a nuisance to try and get those things even, but I will get it so it'll hold long enough to get the JB weld in there. And then I probably will go drill and tap it and put some extra protection in there, get some screws or something in there to hold it. Cap screws. So anyway, the next step is to weld up the two little bands on the top end, and since I'm not really equipped to film welding, I mean, it just looks like a bunch of flashy stuff. I'll bring it back over when I'm done with the welding, and if it's really ugly welding, I may take a first pass with the lathe and then show it to you. So whatever works. Okay, well, here's the setup. Got the welding done. Not pretty, but it'll be disappearing pretty soon anyway. Got the steady rest dialed in. We're within, as round as that pipe is, we're within a couple of thousandths end to end. So now it's a matter of turning this down until it's just about 20 thousandths or so thick on the weld. So gonna move the camera over where you can see it a little better, and I probably won't go through the whole thing, but there's nothing else that gets you in on the last pass or two. We're getting there. Another 10 and see how that turns out. That's pretty close. Well, I think we'll take it out and see what we got. Okay, it's slid in all the way. It rotates freely, but it's very little wiggle on it. That's just exactly what I was after. Now, the next step is going to be drill this hole for, I don't know, a 1/4 inch or something. I'll put a spring-loaded pin in there. There'll be a bracket or something to hold it so I can pull the plunger out, turn it 45, drop the plunger back in. So, and I'll have to spot the holes wherever I want them. So. Okay, we've decided instead of welding or brazing the base onto the bottom of the post that we would just lock it in place and use JB Weld. Well, JB Weld likes to have a rough surface, and since we already have this thing chucked up in the lathe and ready to go, we just switch ends and we will knurl it. And we just kind of square up the knurler a little bit to the post, and it doesn't have to be a pretty knurl, it's just something to make it rough. As you might notice, I have the lathe set for silent running, so it'll be really quiet and easy to hear my voice over it. There you have it, one ugly uneven knurl ready to go. Now next we're going to spot our 5 holes so the indexing pin will have some place to index to. I got my transfer punch, which is not a perfect fit, but it's as good as it gets. I would normally hang on to that punch, but I was using my left hand to push the grinder base firmly onto the top of the post so it wasn't floating away from the top a little bit. Try to get the thing as close as possible to where it belongs. Then turn it 45 degrees by and just measure that with the level on the 45 degree part of the square, and punch another hole. Again with the one-handed method. And then from this point on I decided to put my elbow in the way of everything, so we'll come back in a minute. I centered the mill spindle up on the pipe and then drilled the 5 holes. It's pretty boring to watch one hole drilled, let alone 5, so we won't show all that. Okay, I made a little progress off camera. Some of it because I just got carried away, and some of it because I forgot that I was filming, or wasn't filming. Anyway, so the welding's built up, turned down. It fits beautifully inside of the tabletop there. There's 5 holes drilled at close to 45 degree angles. Slips in there nicely. Made a pin out of 01 drill rod. It's 3/8 inch, and test fitted it. Fits in there nicely. A little bit of wiggle, but just perfect. I got a hole drilled in it for a roll pin to stop it from going too far in. I've got a spring that will go over the roll pin, and then there'll be a block mounted right here. That'll hold the pin straight. You can pull the pin out part way, turn it, and then the spring should push the pin back in. The back end to the bottom end of this is knurled to give the JB weld something to grab a hold of, and just kind of roughly cleaned up the outside of the tube. And then in here I milled a flat spot just to get rid of the paint and the casting roughness, just a 20 thousandths or so, to give our block a consistent place to set. This is the block, and I'll take it out and show you the rest of it here in a little bit. But I was just kind of cleaning it up and rounding off the edges. I bought a set of these edge rounders. This one's a 1/4 inch radius, and just now trying them out. So I'm going to round off these 3 edges because they're the ones that are exposed to the outside. When you reach in to grab the knob to pull the pin loose, it just makes it a little smoother, maybe prettier, I don't know. So we're going to make a few passes and kind of round this one off, and then we'll just kind of work our way around this thing. I won't show it all on cam, but we'll get enough to see what's going on. So that's about where I want it to be as far as the Y. I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place, and then I'll start working it down. At first, because it's such a shallow cut, I can take a pretty good vertical, 60 thousandths or so, whatever. Okay, looks like we can make one more pass. I don't want to get into where we can actually see the edge leaving a ridge one way or the other, but there's a little bit of light at the bottom and the front edge of that cutter. Okay, so here's the block. So in case you're wondering how I fitted the pin, I took a transfer punch and I backed it in here. I put a little block behind it, set this on our freshly machined surface. Machine surface like so, and then smack this with a hammer to pick the transfer up from the hole. So this hole is transferred to the face of that, not by hitting the punch, but by hitting the block that's against the punch. Anyway, the moment of truth, let's see how this thing fits together. Okay. We have to do a little cleanup on the end of the hole. I forgot to chamfer one end. So I'm just going to run over and do that. Okay, I was gathering up roll pins here, and I got one that'll fit this just nicely. Something for the spring to push against. Now, I need to mount this block. Okay, we appear to be just a hair high. About that much. Okay, I'm going to take this back over to the mill and take a little off the bottom. So I thought I would show the setup I'm using to get the height taken down a little bit on this block. So what I've done is I take a couple of 3/8 tool bits and lay them on the bottom of the vise like so. Put the pin in. Now that should square the pin itself up. Now I can mill the bottom of it to be square with the pin, and it looks like it's holding just where it should be. That transfer punched mark wasn't all that accurate, so I'm going to have to take a fair amount off of this. That's a 40/1000 cut. So I took my depth measurement off of the caliper and put the pin in the hole on the casting, measured to the top of the pin, then put the pin in the hole here and put it in place and measure the top of that. I got 35 thousandths yet to take off here. So. Approximately. Okay, here we go. Okay, another 5 thousandths or so. Okay, so I lined everything up over on the bench, and I'm sure there'll be a little bit of adjustment, but the idea here is I'm going to I've got it clamped, the block underneath clamped in place. I'm going to put in 4 1024 screws to hold the block up underneath here. And the reason I'm going with such small screws is I want to countersink them so that they're flush with the table. And I don't want, the smaller the screw, the smaller the depth of the countersink. So I want to get as much material under the countersink as I can. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tap the first 2 holes. The clamp's in the way for the rest, so I'll get these 2 holes to hold it while I drill the other 2. Okay, so we got the holes countersunk. So let's screw one in here. Okay, we're going to put a couple more holes in it. Checking to make sure we have enough room between the holes that heads of the screws don't run into each other. And we're fine. Let's see what I'm doing here. Okay, drill 2 more holes and tap them. Go drill a couple of holes, I'll be back. Okay, tapping the last 2 holes. Bolt this thing up again. Now, it's probably not going to be a perfect fit. I kind of expected that. It fits, but it's a little bit tight. It's just quite a bit tight. So what I was going to do is ream this hole out just a touch. Let's try it with a W drill. And if that isn't big enough, we'll try it with a 20 some odd 64ths. Okay, how does the pin fit? Smooth. Let's quit there, huh? Okay, now what's left? Put the spring in here, pin it, and put some kind of knob on the end of it. See what we have in the way of knobs out of the knob box. Okay, let's put a little chamfer on it. Now we get a little bit of 3/8 coarse thread on there, and not being a glutton for punishment, I'm going to grab a 3/8 coarse die and just take care of business. We'll move this tapping operation back to the bench where we can get a hold of it. I got a V-block in there in the soft jaws, and that seems to be holding it. I don't have any tap magic. That's just about perfect. Okay, that's all assembled here. Pin slides in and out nicely. Let's get the spring and the other pin together here. Make sure we're happy with the pin situation, the roll pin. Okay, there's that. Pin pulls all the way. That's going to work marvelously. Okay, now I got to take the burrs out of the inside of this. I don't got to, but I'm gonna. Those holes could do to be slightly larger. Go ahead and get that W drill and work through them real quick. Well, there's one more. There it is. Much rather start out with the holes a little too small and make them bigger than the other way around. Okay, now let's see what happens. Yeah, they drop right in. Very little wiggle. Okay, I'm not going to be wearing the wireless mic for this, but maybe y'all have seen this before, but I'm going to set some red heads to hold this base down. And I'm going to set them pretty deep, because I got the only side bolts I can get is too long and too short. So I figure too long is better than too short. Through. That's generally not real good, because now I gotta know about how deep it was when I quit. Well, we're down to the end of it here. Post is all painted and dried and everything. It's got a little bit of wobble. If I were to set these 3 set screws, it would square it up, but I still would like something a little more solid than that. So I'm going to mix up a bunch of JB weld for the inside of it. And just before we do all that, I came back and bead blasted the paint off of this knurled surface we made earlier. Took the dermal grinder and went down inside of there and cleaned as much of that up as I could, so we get the best bond we can. So, and then what I'm going to do is put the top on it and put a level or a couple levels on top, and I'll adjust the screws to get it to stay, you know, horizontal, flat, level. And then I'll start putting the JB weld down in there. I may put some down there in advance just to get started. There's kind of a irregular cavity down there. Okay, well, we've got this all finished up. All the epoxy is hardened and everything. A little review here. There's the finished plunger assembly. Everything fits very nicely, and it at least so far seems to be nice and solid and no problems. After we get the grinder mounted up on it, got it all plugged in, power it up, and listen to how quiet it is. No vibration. The pin is a little bit tight in the pin holes, the index holes. I may drill those out just a little bit more.